Yes, ma'am.
No squeaks. There you go. Good girl. Good girl. Get it. That ball's almost dead. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Whoa, I have a dog throwing a ball at me. I must throw the ball at the dog. There, get it. Um, Kiri is terribly disruptive this morning. I'll get it. Go get it. Get it. Oh, get it. Have you finally, this dog has finally discovered the joys of fetch. Like way late in her life. It went that way. Where'd it go? There it went. She's like, oh noes. Okay. All right. Anyway, welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips. Why am I not seeing anybody in chat? Say hello, chat. Chat, are you here? Hello. Is anybody out there? Because I'm not seeing chat at all. Oh, there we go. Yay. Usually guys are filling it up. Oh, Kiri, did I throw the ball too far? Oh, good girl. Oh, she has a sad on now. What? It's stream time. I can't play with you. Sulking dog. Good morning, everybody. This is Anne. Welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with the dog of sulkiness who tried to squeak for you and then wanted to distract me for 3 minutes. Here we are. Boy, Dirt Diver, it's a week. It's just a week. Yes, yes. Well, Kiri was happy, and then I was playing with her, but then she wanted me to keep playing with her. We have to work, and that means no playing, right, Doglet? Yeah, it's a good girl. You're a good girl. I have to give her the happy dog face, you know, the the pun dog face. Pun husky. All right. Oh, you sent me a link. Did you send it via Twitch, via Discord, via what, my dear Kerniko? I can look at all of the above. Let's see here. I didn't see anything in my Discord this morning. Carrier pigeon. Via Twitch. All right. Well, then I have to go to a Twitch thingy. Yeah. Hello, Kaz. Wow, 20 months. Kaz with the beat down. Hold on here, guys. Let me see, because, well, actually, you know what, Kiranika, we're not going to start like with Tartan today. So let's just actually let's do her face and hair. Let me see. I guess I should look though. Hold on. Trying so hard to, like, you know, be competent today, and it's too hard, guys. It's too hard. New window. Boom, 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 boom. Let us see if I can see the message. Looking for chats. There's a message. There we go. All right, I'm looking at it, guys. Oh, okay. Yes. Ha! I am finding this hilarious because I've actually done this tartan before, Kerniko. Good choice. It actually is one of the best tartans to do on miniatures because it is fairly simple and you can pop up the contrast of parts of it. It's a 3-color tartan, so that actually is a perfect choice for something small like a 28mm miniature. So fantastic, and thank you. Perfect choice, Kerniko. Let me get chat back up here to see you guys. Carrie Michael Gosby, thank you for the 6-month resub. And yeah, that's like your half anniversary, half subiversary. Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's a dark blue with green and a thin yellow stripe. It's actually for those of you familiar with the old lupines from Warlord on Reaper, I did that very tartan on the lupine, one of the, I think he's the shaman. I decided I wanted to play with the tartan. Oh, it's perfect. Yeah. Like I said, I have done it before. It will carry perfectly on something like this. So, lovely. But let's, now that I know you picked that one, that makes the hair color even better. And the skin color. So let's do some things and some stuff and things. Where is my rosy skin? There it is. Haha. And how about my... whether I want to go up with pale flesh or I want to go up with just a white. I think I might just want to go up with white. And we're going to try to match that color. It is more than suitable. It is perfect. Everybody loves to be perfect. Have fun. Go earn monies. Go earn monies. We'll get to it. So this is the model. She is very cute. I need to look at her hands and see if they are actually skin. Yeah, I think she's got wrist wraps and she has skin. So I will have to paint the skin tone on that. I do see a tiny little bit of flash that I didn't quite take out before priming. We ran out of black primer, so I've been priming everything in white like I used to, and I'm remembering why I like priming things in white. I've got a little curl of metal here, so take the tip of your X-Acto knife and just kind of try to get it out. Perfect. There we go. All right. Hey there, Bob and Julie. How's it going? All right, so we're doing a Bobby today. Here we go. And yeah, my primer didn't quite get back in the cracks. When you see something like this, guys, if you're using a spray and you don't quite get like back, it's got a thin misting back there, but it doesn't have a solid coat. It's no big deal. You could paint right over it if you wanted to, honestly, and not do the brush on primer. I'll do a bit of brush on because why not? But in reality, nobody's going to be touching that area. So when you get like a really, like not a whole lot of coverage back in the cracks and deep crevices of a model, to me, it's not an emergency, and you really don't have to prime as long as you've got a, yeah, it's a weird week. It really is. So funky. So I'm going to just put a little bit of primer. So when you use the Reaper brush on primer, by the way, shake it up like anything. I almost swore. Shake it up. Shake this beastly thing up because it is so fine that it will settle out of solution at the slightest provocation. So I usually keep one around and I make sure that I use this bottle like frequently, or at least shake it frequently. So that when it comes out of the bottle, it should be nice and smooth like an MSP paint. You should not see any clear fluid. It should cover, you know, if you're not seeing that, then it's not sufficiently shaken. So you want that. And I also will drop just a tiny bit of water into it. I'll pick up just a little bit of water, water on my brush. See that one drop? And pop that right in there. It's about a 6-to-1 probably, as far as primer to water at that point. And then I'll mix it up just like a paint. All you need is a thin coat. You really don't need a lot. And Reaper primer is thick enough to cover up fine detail. So you want to... Bob and Julie are both green users. They share the account, John David. And they are never separated. So like, and where you can be, where one is, the other probably also is. It is rare to encounter a wild Bob or Julie without the other. I am totally losing out on my green stuff here, or my poster putty. Come to me, poster putty. I keep this giant amoeba of poster putty over here, like, so I can just keep pulling parts off of it. It's a mixture of like 2 or 3 different poster putties at this point. But I failed on my poster putty early on. I do need to poster putty her. They share a psychic bond, yes, and great sculpting ability. So yeah, it's usually coffee breaks. You're both here. Yes, exactly. I kind of assume that they come in a pair also, which is awesome because then you get bonus, right? 2 for the price of 1. All right, so there we go. So we've got our happy little thingy. Block of wood with poster putty on it. I bought a bag of 50 of these little tiny blocks of wood, and I have not regretted it. Now everybody has a holder. Oh, I see I missed a little bit of flash there too. Man, I tried to clean this model really well. It just goes to show after you prime it, all bets are off. You will always notice parts that you missed. So she's cute. Hey DM, how's it going? Alrighty, so I was talking about the Reaper brush on primer and how to use it. Let me grab I'm actually going to grab a synthetic. Do I have a smaller synthetic around here? Let me look for a smaller synthetic, because right now all I've got is my big flat. I think all of my other synthetic brushes over there are also gigantic, so we'll just use this one. As long as I can get in everywhere, which I can, I should be fine. And this will encourage me to put a thin coat on. So yes, as reiterated, shake your Reaper brush on primer extremely. Thin it about 6-to-1, 6 drops of primer to 1 drop of water. Oh yeah, Reaper Live, Critical Role, all of the above, right? Sweet. Yeah, that works too, Moonglooms, except that I'm not comfortable with like woodworking at all, or cutting wood. So, David does. He's got a freaking saw in the closet. Like, he will take a big chunk of wood and cut plinths up. The man is crazy. Since wood class in college, I have never been comfortable working with wood at all. So I go the easy route. I buy the tiny blocks. I do like the tiny blocks because you can also use them as a thing to base your miniature on then. Like, you can build up, and get scenic and paint it nice and black and put a gloss coat on it and make it look pretty. It can be your miniature plinth. So they do share a dual purpose, but I do like this size. It's comfortable to hold. So then load up some primer on your brush. You don't need a lot. You need just a thin coat, especially for an area like this that's very recessed. You just want to kind of get it in there and get a thin, even coat on it. That's why I thin the primer, so that it will go on in just a really thin layer. And the nice thing about using a crappy Taklon brush for this is that you can kind of twist it and smush it into areas that you want. And when your primer is thin, you don't have to worry that you're going to build up too much by doing that. Like I said, the Reaper primer can be quite thick straight out of the bottle. It will fill detail. This can be very useful at times if you have heat pitting or some other feature that you want to fill in, a small mold line that you may use also. A lot of people use brush on sealer for that, but primer works just as well, if not better. Use a craptastic brush for it. This is my kind of terrain, base coat, big flat areas brush. It's a Reaper 4 flat. And I'm just pretty much shoving it in anywhere that I see a little bit of metal gleam. Like I said, all these areas are recessed. You really don't need to prime them, but I haven't really talked about brush on primer before on the show, so let's talk about brush on primer. Brush on primer can be very useful in the winter for those of you in very cold climates. It can also be very useful for those of you in very wet climates where spray aerosols tend to go kind of wonky. If you're in a very humid or very cold climate, then this may be a good thing for you. And as you can see, when I have thinned down the primer in this way, and when I am applying it very thinly with a large brush, it makes a very even coat. Ooh, thanks for the gifted sub, Dirt Diver, to Mini Painter 53. You are really the 53rd Mini Painter. Yeah. Tiny blocks, yeah, Michael's and Hobby Lobby. You can see them, find them in the Craftwood section. They're really cheap. Really, really inexpensive. Really worth it because, like I said, this size, which is the 1-inch block, is perfect also to just base a miniature on. So if you're going to build up a fancy base, kind of we usually see people use the big blocks for busts, like Mr. Grumpy. This is actually one of these blocks, and it's just got a nice coat of mineral oil on it, which deepens the color and brings out the grain. So, there's Mr. Grumpy. But yeah, so these random blocks can serve as just simple plinths if you don't have anything fancy. For some models, like for Sacrifice here, I have both my fancy models up top. So, for Sacrifice here, I wanted a fancy plinth, so I used, a fancy piece of burl that had been, professionally cut and coated and everything. So, this is a very pretty piece of wood, but these cost a lot more than your little simple blocks, right? So, and you also have to find a good source for them, which is a challenge these days. Best place is to go to conventions, but you can't always find vendors. So yeah, so these little blocks can be a good substitute for a fancy block, especially if you have a Dremel kit where you can actually carve into them, shape them, give them a more a shape that suits whatever you're doing. Hobby Lobby is not a great organization, some people think, but Michael's is your alternative, John David. So let's keep it family friendly in the chat, please. Opinions are opinions. Not everybody shares everybody else's opinions, so let's not be incendiary. Let's see. I did not want that. I did want to kind of double check everything. The only little metal bits that are left now are down the side, there, and there. Oh, by the way, you can also find those wood blocks on Amazon, guys, and they're super cheap. Like I said, I got a bag of 50 of them on Amazon. Usually you can only buy a bag of about 10 or 12. So, yeah, do keep it, yeah, that's... When we get to loaded topics like that, where some people believe it and, some people are very... people are going to be different in opinion on that one. So let's just keep away from Hobby Lobby. If you do not support a business's, ideology, you are free to not support it. but we don't need to trash anybody here.
I agree, Anne. Good call.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much vote with your dollar when it comes to that stuff, is my opinion. That's what I do. And like I said, I didn't even have to leave my house. I just ordered them off of Amazon. Yay. All right, so there we go. And I've got a little bit back here. I've got a little bit of roughness, too, back here. A little bit of heat pitting, because this is a big slug of metal. So what I can do then, it's just a very tiny bit of texture, but I can take my primer again, and I always reshake it, no matter, even if I shook it 2 minutes ago. Get a little bit of a thicker coat. Sometimes I put it just on the side of the palette where I'm already working with the thinner primer. And then I'll take my big fat brush again. This time I want to put it on thicker because I want it, there's a little bit of texture here and I want to fill that in. So I'm going to get my nice thick primer. And I may need to put on, now see how it builds up, like see that ridge? That didn't happen with my first primer coat, right? Because I had thinned it down so it was more self-leveling. So if I scrape this thin, it looks more like that. If I let it puddle or goop, then it's going to be more like it is over here. Now, the flat is not the best brush for this particular application because it tends to pull everything really thin over the surface. And we want it to actually fill in some of our stuff. So like we want to fill in some of this bad kind of crumbly stuff that happened when it was in the mold. And this happens with very thick metal models or when they've got a big thick cloak often. And it's just the heat is just so intense in that particular area of the model that you get that kind of blistering effect on the surface. Reaper John could tell you all about it as he was casting supervisor for so long. And a caster, just a general caster for so long. Primer is chemically different from paint. What it does, DM, is primer has chemicals in it that micro etch the surface of the metal. So essentially, chemically, it's got little tiny primer claws and it's scratching at the surface and then it's sinking its claws into those little scratches. That's why primer sticks better to models than paint does. It's formulated to do that, and it's formulated usually for various surfaces. But really, the smoother the surface that a primer will work on, if you're working on a more porous surface than that, it's good for that too. So when if it works on metal miniatures and people call us up and ask if it works on leather or wood, the answer is yes, those are both more porous surfaces. The difference though is flexibility. So like leather, you really have to, like, if you're going to try to paint leather, you really have to apply the primer and then see how it does, because as the leather flexes, you may notice flaking or something. Some primers that are harder are also more brittle, and this is a feature of paint in general. Anything that's more durable tends to be more prone to, like, chip, not peel. Less durable paints tend to peel more. They won't have a hard chip. So, yeah. Essentially, yes, it does also, as after it micro-etches the surface and clings itself on there, the paint can then attach to the primer as the primer has a tooth to it. So, a tooth that the metal does not have, because the metal is a non-porous surface, or mostly. And the primer is more porous. Yes, indeedy. So, I put on one coat, I let it dry, I'm mixing my full-strength primer into my thinned primer a little bit. I'm going to put one more coat on. Just like with sealer, using sealer for this trick, it may take you a few coats to fill in that detail, but you'll probably get to a decent level. And then remember that, you know, if you're doing a full strength base coat, it's also going to help fill in this this detail that you want to get rid of. So now I find that a round brush is a little bit better for detail fill in, because like I said, the flat brush is going to scrape over the surface. It's not going to encourage pooling, but a round brush can encourage a thicker coat, especially a softer brush. Like this is where it comes down to using a softer brush like an old Sable instead of a Taklon, because Taklon is a plastic bristled brush that's very stiff, and that means that it's more inclined to show brush strokes. So if you're using a softer brush, if you want to fill in detail, like fill in a flaw like that, use a softer brush and you'll probably get better mileage out of it. Otherwise, you're going to be fighting the tendency of the brush to scrape away the paint you're trying to apply in a thick layer. So, brush makes a difference. All right, so now I've got, if you, at this point, this is a good point to, if you have any little bits that have kind of abraded off, since this model was lying around before I put it on its nice little plinth today, she does have a couple of spots that are not as coated with primer, so this is a good time for me to just come in with my, this is where I would use the big flat to give everything a nice coat. Here. And this is how I always used to work, guys. Like, I usually, like, for years, for 2 decades, I worked off nothing but white primer. Recently, I've been giving the zenith priming thing a try again. Like, it's popular now, and I like to know how to use every technique that's available to me. But I do have to say that when we ran out of black primer and I went back to all white, I was reminded why I prefer just priming white. I don't agree necessarily with that mini painter, because I think that the brush helps you. The brush is a tool. The brush is a tool. And the brush, if you get a really good brush after using crappy brushes, it will absolutely level you up. Big time. And yeah, because you'll actually be able to put the paint where you want it. And that's, you know, so important, being able to have that, being able to get the precision control you need, and then developing the muscle control. Nope, I just used a Reaper's brush on, yeah, John David. The Stynal Res is really good for airbrushing, but I've never tried it brush on, and I really like the way the Reaper primer works when I thin it just a little bit. I like that I can get a super smooth coat with no brush strokes, and I've not had that experience with the Stynal Res. There may be a point where I can thin it and get that, but I've heard nothing but good reports on Stynal Res, so, you know, as I say, your mileage may vary. I just really like the Reaper primer, so I'm going to use it. I've never had a reason to go to Stynal Res, but it does apparently work on bones, and it works great out of an airbrush. If I airbrushed more... Oh, I don't airbrush, see. That's where you want to talk to, like, people like Michael Proctor and Aaron Lovejoy, who are Reaper painters who are airbrush experts. I am a traditionalist. I am able to use an airbrush without, like, impaling myself on it, but that's about it. And, you know, David and I both, like, kind of look at this, and he's better with it than I am. He at least will whip his airbrush out every once in a while. But I'm just like, in the amount of time that it would take me to get the airbrush out, set the airbrush out, mix the primer, get the primer in, prime the mini, and break it down and clean the airbrush, I could have had 5 of these primed. So it always comes down to time for me on that. And it's just because, you know, when you've been doing it for so long, you know, you may find that you're just faster using traditional means. So what we're going to do today is we're going to use the great skin tone for redheads, Rosy Skin. This was formulated for redheads specifically. It was formulated because we needed a skin tone that was a little less just kind of tan. So you can see next to my fingers how rosy and pinkish this is compared to, like, my base skin tone, which is more this golden color, right? And I'm pretty fair. But this color is really good if you want that pink, really pink complexion, fair pink complexion. Oh yeah, so you get it, Mini Painter, yeah. Yeah, Aaron's fantastic. Aaron and Liz are both fantastic. So yeah, they are the people... see, I don't mind admitting that I am not an airbrush person, and so I can't answer a lot of questions about it. I always try to refer everybody to Aaron and Michael Proctor from Crow's Nest, because they work with it so much more than I do, and they can give you a much more informed answer. I do not mind being ignorant of something in the hobby. It happens. All right, so about a 4 or 5 to 1 for Rosy Skin. It's a color with a lot of white in it. Now, my usual go-to, and again, if you want to do a redhead and you want a skin color that goes with a redhead, Rosy Skin is your go-to. Oh yeah. Michael taught me to airbrush. He uses them a lot for setting up big models. He does it, it's really, he'll set up his base coat and some highlighting and shading. He's quite good at it, I think. Michael's quite experienced with airbrushing. He's helped a lot of us Reaper painters who weren't very into it get better at it. So, here's the thing, guys. So what I usually shade with for this skin tone, and this is a skin tone that I used a variation on this recipe and gave it out. If you have the holiday colors set, you can use to highlight this, you can use peppermint white. The shadow for it is actually a color that's no longer in print, which I'm very sad about, but we're going to try to mix a variation of it using rosy skin. So bright skin shadow is usually my shadow color for this skin tone. But because it no longer exists, we're going to attempt to mix it. So we're going to take some Sione Scarlet and apply it to our rosy skin and see if we can get something that's very close. I prime with spray can. If we had a space for an airbrush to be actually set up, John David, I think then I would, I might be convinced to prime with airbrush, because I could totally see where it could be at an advantage, right? Being able to control the angle better and the precision of it. All right, so rosy skin, and we're trying to hit this. So if I look at this color next to the rosy skin, mostly I see that it's much darker and pinker. What that means is adding red. So I have to ask myself if adding something like Sione is going to be the best, or if I would much rather add something like... Here, let me grab my... Where are you, Heraldic Red? I need you. There you are. We've got a couple different choices here, and we can experiment. These are the range, and I also would experiment maybe with Deep Red, which is 9002. But, so, here's the range of things we could add to this skin tone to get it to go darker and pinker like our canceled bright skin shadow. So, just looking at it, Amadeus might be, or Asmodeus might be a little bit dark. Heraldic could be good. This looks maybe a little bit, Sione looks a little bright. I think I'm going to try Heraldic and kind of see what results I get. So, as usual, I'm taking a 4-drop mix and I'm adding 1 drop to it. If you always start out the same way, then you can remember what you do a lot easier. Hey, Trouble, how's it going? Hi, Dogfather. So we are going to try to mix a shadow for this. We're going to put 1 drop in and mix it up and see what we've got. And see if we're close enough. Really just needs to be close enough to the bright skin shadow. But I want a very rosy shadow for this skin tone. She's fair-skinned, but she's like out in the wind. This is going to be close. Might need some yellow. So the problem with adding red straight to a skin tone, and this is not a problem actually. So this is actually the way that I create blush and lip colors for a skin tone. Add a little bit of a red to your skin tone and you will get a color that goes with it. Trouble had a birthday. So Trouble has a birthday? And it's in December. So, but I have to look at this next to this and say, oh, but this is still more fleshy, right? See how that's very pink? So what you're running into here is that the rosy skin has a very heavy load of white. So when you add any red to it, despite the fact that rosy skin does have some yellow, you know, some warm tone to it, there's not enough of it, so the red overwhelms it and it goes too pink. So then what you want to do is you want to add a little bit of yellow. And you could, there's a couple colors that we do that would be good choices for this. Either Lemon Yellow 9009 or NMM Gold Highlight 9303. Yes, and happy birthday, Trouble. Happy belated. I'm going to use lemon because it's a little lighter. And I want just a touch. I'm going to use 1 drop. Again, we're starting with the 4, and everything I add then after my initial 4 drops of mix is 1 drop to start out with. After that, if I get more complicated, I really need to stop and write it down. This may do it, though. We may need 2 drops. This could be okay. So 1 drop of lemon did shift it, and it shifted it. It's getting closer. Maybe 1 more drop. So really, it's just when you're trying to match a color, just kind of keep looking at the color next to it. Usually you'll be able to kind of pick like, oh, this needs more green, or oh, this needs more blue. Or oh, in this case, this needs to be more orangey, so I need to add yellow. That's good enough. But I mean, you don't need to be real precise. If you're colorblind, then this can be very difficult for you. All right, so that's really close. That's close enough. I'm going to try to rock that and see if it works. So what we're doing then is we're mixing a rosy shadow type color for our rosy skin. I wanted to use this sort of thing instead of rosy skin shadow. You can also use rosy skin shadow. What I wanted, though, for this model is to go a little more cartoony with it. So I'm looking for a more intense rosy shadow and less natural. That's why I'm going this route. And what it gives you is it gives you a very youthful, flushed skin tone that I like. And it is more cartoony. It's more of an unnatural shadow. Since, as you can see from my face, you don't have that intense pink like hovering around. So... Oh, hold on. The model is... that. Bobby Jackson. I went looking for awesome women, awesome female models. I have some awesome guys coming up, too, once we start switching out stuff in the rotation. But I went looking for awesome girls who kick butt to paint, and this is one. I also did want to do tartan, so that's why we're starting here. So now, to go up from this... like I said, if you have the holiday skin colors set, you can use peppermint white for this, and it's perfect. But I will use pure white, which is a good enough sub. So here we're going to do, again, the 4 drops of rosy skin. And we're going to start with just 1 drop of pure white, because pure white is really strong. We're doing like a really fair and rosy skin tone for this model, Dogfather, with auburn hair. I'm going to do auburn, I think. I may actually make a video on that also for my Patreon. Just doing auburn hair and kind of the stuff behind it. But we shall see. I still have my my $2 video. I keep going back and forth on what I want to do, which I've been working on my $5 PDF for you guys instead. So that'll come out soon. Just have to do the swatches. I might get it out today. If not, it'll be out by tomorrow. And then I'll have to hard commit. Now, okay, let's bring up something interesting here. So notice how little the white actually shifted that rosy skin. So there's 4 drops of rosy skin, 1 drop of white. Usually when I add a drop of pure white to a color, it shifts the color a lot. So what does this tell us? This tells us that rosy skin already has a very high load of white pigment. When you add pure white to a color and it hardly moves, you're fighting against an already entrenched high load of pigment, probably a high load of white. It's either white or it's another opaque pigment. Because if you have like clear magenta and you add a drop of white to it, even though clear magenta is one of the highest pigmented colors in our entire line, you will see a big shift just because the white is so opaque and the magenta is not. But here, with rosy skin, we have so much white in the color already. The more pigment, and especially the more white you already have in a color, the harder it is to shift that color with anything you add. It's like you're fighting against the load of pigment that's already in it. So now I know I have to go significantly higher. So if I add 2 drops of white, then I'm going to a 2-to-1 ratio. 4 drops of rosy and 2 drops of white. I'm betting that I'm actually going to have to go even higher. I think I'm going to probably have to go to a 1-to-1 to get an appreciably lighter color. But we could also just do this and not have to thin it as much. Remember, when you're layering, you can do it one of 2 ways. You can mix a bunch of colors that are really close to each other, and then you don't have to thin them as much to get them to blend. Or you can go really different and thin a lot, like I tend to do. So, yeah, sure, Agent. This is all from my knowledge. I created the Reaper Master Series paint line. I built it all from day one. So, I have a lot of paint chemistry knowledge and color knowledge and pigment and mixing knowledge that I like to share on the stream. This makes this stream unique. There is no other miniature painter teaching on Twitch who has created, 5 or 6 paint lines that I know of, unless Mike McVeigh has started to Twitch. Then he can give me a run for my money. But he's the only guy in the hobby that can, I think. Yeah, there's been this sort of style of model has been around in the Reaper line. This is the latest iteration sculpt that I've seen. All right, so let's start out with our midtone. I could start out with the shadow. That would make it very, very pink. I'm going to try to start with the midtone, though, I think. So rosy is a very, very, as you can see, it's a very light color. We definitely will need to shade it. We'll probably need to shade it with something even darker than that shadow that we mixed. And I'll show you guys how I would choose what to do that with as well. And I've chosen to not use the regular shadow color for this triad because I wanted a more cartoony, brighter livelier skin tone for this model. I think she is a little bit cartoony, so I want to work with that. Let's see, gonna pop that back in her neck. And we'll just kind of use I'm using a pretty good brush for base coating because I want the tip, because there's a lot of small areas on this. So I want to be able to hit everything. Hey Val, thanks for the resub. 5-month streak, you're almost to your half-a-year anniversary. Haha. Yep, color theory. That's another thing I'm big on. All of these things are my specialty. Like airbrush, go to Erin Lovejoy. Color theory, mixing, and paint chemistry, come to Anne. That's a question for Ed and Ron, I think, Trouble. Because I don't remember, like, it would be various lines that would have won anything, like Origin Awards and stuff like that. And I'm not certain. That's something that I think Ron keeps track of some of that. So that would be maybe a Ron and Ed question for Reaper Live. If they have a question submission. Do they take questions on Reaper Live, Justin? Or do they just present stuff?
I mean, they do answer stuff fairly regularly.
Okay, yeah. That would be one for Ed and Ron then, guys. As far as what awards the paint line has won. I just make this stuff. I don't listen to the accolades. Like, it's funny, but like they always tell you in writing and art, like, to never listen to the critics, whether it's good or bad. Just do your stuff. I kind of agree with that mindset. Because then you obsess if people don't like it, or you'll get full of yourself and think that it's perfect if people do like it. There's just a lot of pitfalls in listening to other people's opinions. The best you can do is put out the best thing you can. Oh, we've won a lot of Origin Awards. The Mouselings won. Our first Mouselings won an Origins Award. Oh, are we soft? Do I have to check? Let me see if my my sound setting. Thanks for letting me know there. Let me check my sound setting. Every once in a while, Windows likes to be dumb. All right, let's see here. Device properties. Nope, it's still up. I'm still good. So it may be you. Check your check your sound on the page here. Hello, Mafik. The stream is going good. I don't think my mic should be low, guys. I just checked the volume. It's good. And I haven't touched my tray. So we should be okay. Yeah, other people saying no issue. And I'm loud, dang it. Now, given I am talking down most of the time, which is why I have my mic sitting right here in my face. Like, if I moved it anymore, you would see, like, my mic and my, like, Widowmaker Figma figure. Because she hangs off of it. Alright, so let's take a look at her arms. We're going to also need skin tone. Let's just block in all the skin tones. Now, David pointed out that she appears to not be wearing pants. You could totally paint her with trousers or without. She could be just wearing, you know, like skin-tight kind of hide leggings or cloth leggings. I think I might just paint her naked, though, because, yeah, I'm in that cheesecake kind of mood today. And with Bobby Jackson, he probably intended her to be open to the breeze, so to speak. So let us just take that step and go that direction. Bobby can get away with cheesecake in my book. Reaper has many, many fully clothed female models now. Unlike in the bad old days. where fully clothed females were a lot more hard to find. Now you can find a ton of female models that are fully clothed. So I'm just going to go for it. You always have to turn me up? I'm sorry, MCC. I'm not... This is, like, the only time in my, like, entire life that I have been told that I'm too quiet, guys. Because, like, those of you who know me in person know that I project. You can hear me halfway across the room. People who are teaching in the class next to me always, like, you know, I have to make a note to turn my voice down, or they can listen to my class for the price of two, you know, get 2 classes for the price of 1. I am a loud Anne. When I was in choir, my choir director used to have to look at me, catch my eye, and go, to make me go quieter, because my voice would carry over the rest of the choir. Sadly, I was too shy to do solos for the most part. Although I did do a couple of solo parts when I was in musicals in high school. Nerve-wracking, but fun. Yeah, she can be painted either way, Inara. I agree. I just decided I wanted the skin because I like how it moves the eye around the figure. And I also know that, remember, we're going to do a tartan on this cloak, guys. So I have to be ready to distract from that tartan. Whenever you're going to do a lot of freehand on something, you want to make sure that the rest of the model really draws the attention of the eye. Otherwise, everybody's just going to look at your tartan cloak or your tile floor or your whatever. So you've taken 2 classes at once, yeah? Yeah, it's getting to the point where you actually have to shop for cheesecake. Yep. Now, there are some companies that kind of do specialty in it. But yeah, I agree. I think it's a good thing. I mean, I don't mind it. But I am somebody who likes to paint, like, women who are scantily clad. Because I also think we shouldn't go the other direction. Like, I think that going too prudish is also an error. I like to see a variety of everything. I just ordered a model from Ignis Art that I'd been eyeballing for a while that is pretty much a nude. She's like got her hands up like here, so she's, you know, it's not like you can't really see everything, but I like a mixture. There's sometimes I really want to paint a heavily armored female in real full battle gear, and then there are sometimes I don't mind a little bit of cheesecake. So yeah, not enough male pinups. I agree, Iffy. I agree. But the problem is that apparently they don't sell as well. Because we've got a very close to 50-50 split in the hobby in America. So somebody might be able to get away with. I would really like to see a sexy male bust here and there. Like, it seems like all the guy busts are either like, you know, like Clint Eastwood, or they're like, you know, like the demon guy, or they're like, you know, it's just, we don't have any like, where's our sexy vampire dude bust? Like, is there one of those? Why isn't there? You know? Where is that? Where is our Armand from Interview with the Vampire? Where is it? I want it. Well, kinda. Except KD is so, like, over the top in the other direction. It's like... Right, exactly. You're volunteering to be a sexy dude bust, Shadow Raven. I mean, Julie did a nice male Elven Ranger bust for our Kickstarter. But we need more. We need more. Like Julie Guthrie, if you are still in chat, green users, Julie, you do sculpt a good long-haired sexy dude. So try to push Ron on the sexy, younger-looking vampire in armor with, you know, the kind of partially bare chest. Like, let's do that. Let's do that. Yeah, right, Dragon Eye. Right? Like, give me that. All right, I think we've got our base coat on there. We've got all cape on the back, so we don't have to worry about that. Happily, this model, although she has some nice details on her, she is fairly simple. So she got some nice detail here on her belt. She's got, you know, nice little accents. But in general, she's a very simple figure. So she'll be a very quick paint, which is nice. That's why we can do a ton of freehand, because we're working with such a simple model. So let's not forget her hands. We want to make sure that we get all of that. Yeah, we want more sexy men. I need a sexy man bust, Julie. And I know that from the past, I know that you have sculpted some pretty sexy dudes for Reaper in 28mm. So I know that you have it in you. But yeah, Armand, like from the movie, so Antonio Banderas as a sexy, powerful vampire. Like we could go that way. We totally could. Maybe I'm getting too specific. But yeah, it would be nice to see more representation like that. Because yeah, it seems like everybody wants to there's a lot of great male busts out there, but a lot of them are like older guys, like old wizards, you know, with a lot of character, so it's fantastic. But I really do feel like we don't have enough like attractive younger guy busts to match the kind of, sexy female busts that we have out there. Like, who are those sexy female busts going to date? Like, there's nobody, like, on their scale. They've, like, got the tall girl problem, right? There are all these huge female busts who are super sexy, and like, they don't have any, like, male bust counterparts. They'd have to look down at, like, 72 millimeter or something. And who... Well, but there is some of that, like the dad bod bust. Like, there are, like, demons, and there's stuff like that out there, but it seems like all the guys, like, for some reason, and maybe just to give it character, right, CZ? But they do, like, they're more likely to do kind of, I don't know, what I want to say is, like, creepy, ugly, monstrous. Guys tend to seem to go in that direction. Guy busts do. There's a couple of exceptions. There's like I think Andrea puts out a hot elf bust. But, yes, which is good. And that's nice and equal opportunity, Pendrake, that's for sure. Yeah, boy toy busts. Yeah, Trouble, you got it. Would buy. Yeah, like, like all of those, like Armand and Arthas, all those hot youngish men who are also badasses. Like, I totally missed a mold line. Pardon me while I chop this off. Where's my knife? To the knife! These hands, man, when you've got hands doubled up on a two-handed weapon, you all know, the minute you get a mold line, it's evil. So I need to adjust just a little bit on the underside of this hand, or it's going to bother me forever. I mostly dealt with the mold lines pretty well, but sometimes you miss it, and then I'm not even going to prime it. I even have primer open. If I wanted to prime it, I could, but I think I'm going to just go with it. All right, we have our hands, so that's good. Hands done. Hands away. Now, shading. Oh, yeah, like the, it's Bones Black, Iffy? Is it different from our standard? Like, is Ed, like, marketing a new type of bones to everybody with the Bones USA? I would ask him directly, but, he's a busy man, and I try not to bug him about these things. But you guys can bug him with impunity. Oh, so it's totally new material, huh? We are pushing the envelope, John. See, nobody tells me this stuff, and I'm so dang busy that I don't have trouble. I don't often read the media. So, yes. Well, then awesome. Maybe I should order one to give it a try. I assume that Ron will have Rhonda reviewing it, because she likes to test and review things, and she's really good at it. All right, so I'm going to put a shadow here behind the leg. See that rosy, how we got pink real quick there? Little brittle? Yeah, that's probably... Brittleness, it's one way or the other, Jabberwock. I mean, you add more of the brittleness if you want sharper detail and if you want less bendy swords. But then you also have the brittleness, right? There's a downside and upside. And just like with paint, with coverage and saturation, you can't have the perfect, the perfect both. You can aim for it. But one person's perfect is going to be another person's too brittle or too soft. So you can't please everybody. So it's, see, yeah, if it is more brittle, it would catch the details a lot better, which is nice. That's very cool that we're aiming in that direction. So is it more like styrene then? I guess that's probably an internal question that I can't ask on stream and get answered. Ed will be closely guarding his secrets. So, oh yeah, that would be great, John. If you could send me some of it, that would be lovely. I will be glad to use it on streaming and talk about it. We can work one of them into our rotation. So let's put a little bit more of a shadow now here. We're using the pink again. Now notice how this makes the skin tone get, see that pinkish rosiness that we're getting in there? Yeah, John, see, I know John will follow through. If I ask Ron for anything, I'm going to be lucky if I get it in 6 months. Oh no, yeah, it's, everybody's busy, John. Like, if you want to be my contact person to send me cool stuff, like, I totally will take you up on that. Because since I'm not directly on site, it's just really hard to keep in the loop. So look at how, see how that you've got that nice rosiness now around this leg, guys? How I put those shadows in. And they're not really even blended that much because these aren't that different of colors. So you don't need to have a hard blend on there. If I'm going to do a blend, I'll do a spot blend. So like if I get a little bit too bold with the shadow there, I'll grab a little bit of this rosy skin on my brush. And real quick, before this rosy part has dried, I will put some of my regular skin tone in there to minimize it a little bit. And I still get a really nice shadow out of it. Yeah, right. Ron will get around to it a year from now. And it's not Ron's fault. He's got, like everybody else at Reaper, Ron has a crap ton of stuff on his plate. It's just the way Reaper rolls. Oh yeah, for sure, Iffy. Yeah, I think I bought my nephew, and when I got him the Learn to Paint kit, I also got him like the Pirates box set. I bought him some other stuff too. So adding to stuff that they can play with is always, I'm sure, always appreciated. I'm going to grab some brown liner, guys, and pop that in. I'm going to use brown liner on this figure instead of walnut. I want, because she's so fair, I want a line that I can control. I don't want a really, really dark line like with walnut. So I'm going to go for the brown liner this time. I'm going to thin it about 4:1 to 3:1, somewhere between there. I added like a drop and half of water. I just added a brush full instead of my dropper bottle. I like to tune the brown liner by sight, kind of see how it looks. But let's get our, the reason I did this is after I put in the mid-tone and the shadow as when I tend to line and then highlight. Or sometimes I'll highlight beforehand and then I will line. But the reason I would line now, guys, is because right now we've got all this white primer around here. So it's going to be really hard because remember, paint looks different depending on what's next to it, right? So it's going to be really hard to see how light we actually get our highlights here to actually judge whether they look right because of all of this white surrounding them. So when you do this sort of thing and put at least a line around them, do the lining, it gives you a dark foil to kind of assess how light your leg actually looks. Because up against this white, this leg is going to look darker. But the minute I add this line, the leg is suddenly going to look really light. So you need to always keep in mind that colors, lightness and darkness, and even like intensity or particular like color shift are going to change depending on what you put next to the color. So I try to line to kind of keep myself grounded in more what the model is going to look like eventually, especially when I'm painting piecemeal like this, where I'm trying to kind of put a soft finish on each area before I move to the next. So I've essentially used the brown liner because it'll give me a thinner line pretty effortlessly, and it's a little bit lighter than the walnut. So I can tune it a little bit more. It tends to go transparent a lot faster, so I can get a firmer line that's still a little bit lighter. Walnut, to get walnut to go more transparent, you need to pop a lot of it in there. If I blurf, I'm going to grab some water real quick and thin that back. Sometimes when you're trying to hit the way back areas, it's easy to blurf a little, but if you catch it with water fast, it'll be okay. I really could block in this entire area behind the leg as well, and I think I will, because that's all going to be in shadow. So essentially what I'm doing now is this is going to have an effect like having a black primer back here. It's going to start out with a dark ground color so that when I add in the colors of the cape, it's going to naturally be a bit darker back here. Although given that the cape is going to be a dark blue at its base color, I probably won't have trouble with the coverage, but you never know. But yeah, this is also a hard to reach area, so putting a little bit of a shadow, an extra shadow back here, is not a bad idea. Oh, a restless Kiri. Let's hope she doesn't pop. I'm hoping the Kiri can hold out for another half an hour and not have a dog emergency. But the chances of a dog emergency are pretty high. We were a little late today because we were having kind of a bad butt day for Kiri. So let's cross our fingers and hope the doglet sleeps for the next half hour. Go back to sleep, little doglet. Good girl. So if you don't like the firmness of that like line back here, you can also just kind of throw some water back there, grab some of the liner, and do kind of a blend. A blend with just the liner and the water. Kind of make it, you kind of are building a wash on site. You can see how that smooths out that dark color back there. So it creates a very natural looking shadow. So now we can see how very pale that leg is, right? Because now we've got something to look at it against. And I'm also going to take this opportunity to block in shadows way behind this arm up here. Because when are you ever going to, like, you know, be able to hit that, especially after you attach the sword, right? So now is the best time to fill in this area with shadow. There. And if I get the cloth a little bit there, that's not a big deal. Even if I didn't get it hit with the water in time, I could always take some white and just come back in and, you know, paint over my little bit of dark brown that I accidentally put there. Gonna try to get that the cloth above the leg here, this area. Didn't quite take the first time. It's a little bit hard to reach. And I may as well also line the cloth that comes up above the belt at this point. It comes up next to her arm. So what I'm doing now is I'm just kind of taking this opportunity, since I mixed up the liner, to line around and block in some darker areas that I want to kind of minimize and have not be important. There, so I'm adding in quite a bit of dark shadow here on this cloth, because that as it goes and wraps around her and falls underneath this arm and the cape, you're going to have a dark shadow back there. So don't worry about painting it realistically, really. Just shade it. Oh, what are we predicting now? Will Kiri have an emergency? Oh, no! Kiri, they're laying bets on you. Oh, poor doglet. She's the brunt of John testing the system. Or Justin testing the system. One of you is testing the system at the expense of my poor little dog. Hey, Max Styles, thanks for the resub. 11 months. Oh, you are almost at your sub-anniversary. Sub-anniversary, awesome. All right, so I'm going to block in even a little bit more. See that hard line? Then just bring in some water on your brush. Hit the edge of that and pull it down. That'll let it fade in. And then when we come in with our dark blue, we'll have kind of already a dark shadow laid in there. And we put our blue over the top, it'll cover a little bit better and go a little bit darker right away. And this is a lot of when I'm painting in this style, when I'm doing white primer as my beginning, this is a lot of the way I roll, guys. So base coat, shadow, take a moment, because lining is essentially just another shadow. Take a moment to block in some of my deep shadows with the liner, because I've got it. Way more than 11 months of knowledge. I pack it in. I pack it in, Max. But yeah, so when you are painting, if you have just gone Zenith or you're a black primer person, but you maybe want to try white, this is a good way to tackle the white primer. Because the big problem with white primer is you've got to shade, right? You've got to. Because you have only white. You are looking at the white piece of paper. You must bring your shadows in. So this is kind of how I do it. And I also just really love the look of like just starting out and starting to bring in these dark primer shadows and defining my darkest shadow areas relative to what I'm painting at the moment. In this case, the skin. It actually, when you're doing this, is almost a reverse zenith if you think about it, right? Because instead of starting with a black primer and spraying white over the top to get my highlights laid in, I am instead starting with the white and then working out to paint in my shadows. And the advantage here, I mean, and the disadvantage, one, it's not done for you. You've got to figure it out. But in that way, it's going to teach you a lot more straight up than the zenith is, because you have to kind of think. You have to look at the model. Like here, you can see that there's a shadow here. You can just look at the model under the light and see it. So you know that you want to paint in a dark shadow there. So we will do that. Just look at what you see. And then off of these shadow areas, that's where you take your lining off and continue your shadow lines, your shadow areas with lining. And that's how everything starts to stand out. And lining is the, hands down, the fastest way to build brush control that I have found. It requires you to hit details and to, you know, to put in little dashes or steady lines, whatever you want to do. Since you are making yourself, you know, paint details in a consistent manner with a consistent paint consistency, it exercises your fine motor control in the appropriate way to give you better control overall. Yep, that's it, Jabberwock. Lining is the magic bullet. If you are looking for the magic pill to give you better brush control, just, you know, line a few models. I always tell the story of John Bono, who some of you know from teaching at ReaperCon, when he worked for Reaper briefly and was my paint monkey. When he first started, I pretty much gave him a bunch of calves, which are the big mecha models, and said, line these. There were like 5 of them. He wanted to kill me, but he came out of that with much better brush control. Like, just elevated brush control. It was definitely an exercise, but it worked. So, you do not have to line, you know, mecha. You can line, I don't know, awesome Highland heroines, or whatever you want to. But lining will help your brush control. If you don't have the control to do eyeballs or buckles or any of those little tiny details, you want to do some lining. Plus, it just makes your model look better. If you did nothing but base coat and line a figure and maybe put one highlight on it, it would still look great on the tabletop. Right, exactly. See, it's just getting that shadow in there. And now all the details are starting to come out. So, I really enjoy doing this. I really like the look of this particular type of setup. I've been futzing a lot with Zenith lately, and we're doing it the other way around, starting with black primer and sketching in stuff with white. But I think overall, I still really enjoy doing it this way. Sacrifice, the bust I showed earlier, was done in this manner. So was the Mr. Grumpy. Both of my competition level busts that I've done in the last couple years were done with this kind of technique. I've been a white primer girl for a very long time. I stepped back into trying black primer because, like I always tell you guys, I like to do what I say. Just because something didn't work for you a long time ago doesn't mean that it's never going to work for you. So black primer, I really didn't like a long time ago. I had trouble seeing details on it. I still somewhat have trouble seeing details on it. But I found that with busts and larger models, that's not as profound of a problem. And so I can work with the reverse kind of technique. But when it comes down to it, going back to the white lately, I have to say, makes me kind of sad that I primed my last 2 busts black. But who knows? I mean, I enjoy both processes. They're just very different. So again, we're blacking in shadows, right? This area is going to be dark. It's in the back of the model. So I'm giving it a coat of the liner just to kind of set it up. And I am actually keeping some of the folds lighter, see? So as a reminder to myself. But a lot of this is going to be in shadow. So blocking it in that way. There'll be more light over here because it's more open. So got some of our shadows laid in. Now we can line around the face. Yeah, zenith is good practice for OSL and NMM, because both of those techniques require you to understand how light falls. You can double check your zenith by putting it under a bright overhead light and seeing what areas are lit up and what areas are in shadow from the light, and seeing if you got it right. If you see a black area on your priming job that is catching light, then you know that maybe you need a highlight there instead of a shadow. Now, since I know I'm going dark red with the hair, I can go a little darker with my shading here. Usually, if I've got a skin tone that's this pale, I would thin my brown liner even more to get a much more subtle line. Now, I'm looking, can be kind of hard to see the sculpt way in here when she's got her chin buried. It's really easy to blurf. It's really easy to lose that light, bright skin tone. And you don't want to get, if you get some brown liner or some dark shadow on that chin, your only option is to paint over it in white and then rebase coat it. You won't be able to get the fair skin to look quite right otherwise. Let's see here. Gonna tackle while I wait for that area. I just had to flood it to kind of dry. So we can kind of see how hard it is to get that shadow in there and not hit her face. There. And then we've got cloth here. Yeah. Thanks for giving that sub to Ramathy. Oh, Inara, you started. I just saw that you started this one earlier. Yeah. It's a very simple figure. It's a very, very simple figure, but because it's simple, it's a good exercise figure. Like, it's a good model to do this sort of thing on, or to try Zenith on if you haven't done it before. I mean, it has its little bits of detail, but because it's just got, you know, there's just a relatively small amount of detail. You don't have a crap ton of buckles. You don't have a crap ton of belt pouches and potions and stuff, just like our last model. You know, you don't have a lot of different gold and silver armor overlaying everything. You don't, you know, it's a pretty darn elegant, simple mini. And those are really good to practice on. So I would say that if you're trying lighting techniques, this would be a good figure to work with. The only downside is the double-handed sword that goes across hers, you know, goes across this. So I'm going to have to paint that separately, or at least base coat it separately. And then after I've got some of this blocked in, then I'm going to have to put the sword on. So, especially doing tartan, depending on how much is blocked. So now is a good time to grab that and see. So her arms go on like this. I'm going to have to pin at least one of these. And the sword comes down over the cape. So yeah, if I'm going to do tartan on the inside of this cape, I'm going to need to do it before I put the sword on. It was cool, but there was shift. I really should do a little bit of green work on it. I never really contact Reaper for replacements because when I need the mini, I need the mini. So I had a lot of filing, and it thinned down the claymore hilt a lot, I'm afraid. Probably to a more realistic thickness overall, but still think I might want to doctor that a little bit. Reinforce it. All right. She does not want to stick on the sticky tack today. All right, so we're getting that lining done. I do also line between the hair and the face. Like I said, now if we were going blonde or white or any really pale hair, I would not use a brown this dark. I would use a more medium brown, maybe like shield brown or russet, thinned down a bit. You still want the shadow, but if it's all very fair, then you need to minimize that shadow. Whereas I know I'm going to go auburn, so I'm going to be starting with a darker red so I can get away with this dark shadow. even next to so fair a skin tone. Lining around the face really brings out the face. Get my shadow back in there underneath the hair. I don't want to get too dark of a shadow on her neck. I want to use an actual like skin colored shadow back there, I think, or a brown. So I'm going to be careful about that just now. And we're just going to connect these areas up. All right. So we have outlined all of our skin. See how that brings out all of those details? Yes. Yeah, lining will help. Yeah, because you can kind of paint plastic surgery softer details, right, Inara? So if the detail is kind of there, you can paint it in to be a little bit sharper, which is nice. Lining in general, I mean, I use lining on almost every model I do, even if it's subtle. Trying to think. Both of those guys got lining. Both Mr. Grumpy and... Although Mr. Grumpy more has just like dark shading next to everything. Because he's so big. When you get to a model that large, lining just isn't where it's at. It's just use regular shading and make it very dark where one thing meets another. He's even bigger. I mean, he's at least a 1/10 scale bust, but he's just really big. All right, gonna outline the little hands, then we'll get more shading in here. Yes, I do outline between the fingers. However, now is where I might go with a slightly lighter brown between the fingers, because you wouldn't necessarily have such a dark line between those fingers. So we'll get the outside of the hands really dark. So we'll separate the hands with a very dark line. But then when we come in to bring those fingers out, we'll use a slightly lighter brown. I could do it with this color, and it probably wouldn't be too jarring because the fingers are so tiny. Like, the tinier the detail, the darker you really want to go to bring it out. But I think I can get away with... So you can see how much that brings out just the way the hands come together. Oh, I forgot my wrappings here. Hold on. There we go. So now let's get a slightly lighter brown. So one of the browns that I like for this, because it's kind of muted, is Shield Brown. You don't want a shadow to be really bright orangey brown or something like that. So Shield is a good medium brown that's a little bit darker, a little bit more muted, and can... Oh, the wrinkles and the shading on the boots. Yeah, I think I'm going to line a lot of that, Inara. I'm going to do the base coat first, but I'll end up actually lining a lot of the boots. The boots are more like leather wrappings. So just like one... It strikes me... Yeah, I can see where you got... Okay, so we've got definite wrappings around the leather cuffs. So we've got a couple of layers of leather, of wrapped leather is what we've got. So the lacings, yeah. On the Bones version, the lacings probably would be a lot harder to get. I agree. So yeah, I will have to line around those, but I'll probably do it after I figured out my base color for the boots. All right, so now we've got our Shield Brown. We're going to drop a drop of water in there. It's about 4:1. Maybe we'll go down even to 2:1. We'll see. It might get a little bit too thin. I want it to be dark enough that it'll outline the fingers effectively. So we'll see how this looks. I think I'm about 4:1. Yeah, 3D color printing. I mean, it'll get better and better. It still, but guys, it still won't be a substitute for a good paint job. Like I said, you could base coat and line a model, and it would look better on the table. Like just a simple base coat and line looks really good. One of these days, I should do that. I should just grab a model. We can base coat it and line it, and see how it looks. And then show like the different steps of how it gets even better. So, all right, get back, girl. I'm gonna see if this brown is good enough. I may want a little bit of. Oh no, I think that's gonna look good. I was saying I might want a little bit of brown liner mixed into my shields. Sometimes I do, but actually, the biggest challenge here is that the shield brown is not a liner, so it doesn't go as thin as nicely. So it can be a little harder to line with. That's why the liners are formulated to be a little more fluid, so that they work a little better that way. Fingers. And then fingers on the other side. So yeah, against this very fair skin color, even the shield brown looks dark. But it's not quite as dark as the line around the hand. I may want just a little bit more water in it. If it's not flowing off your brush very easily, then you need just a little bit more water. Yeah, I guess if you repaint the color prints, it could be a good, base coat? Though then you have to ask yourself, was it worth paying for them? I don't know how expensive they are, so. Alright, I need a little bit more brown liner in here there's a little more hilt showing than I thought. There we go, so we have little fingers. Oh, I need a little bit more on this side. Decent undercoat, yeah. Extra $10, so not bad. Well, then you get what you pay for, right? I'm sure the technology will get pretty impressive, ages from now. Although I don't know, because the thing is, you still need to. I guess though, you could probably set up algorithms that would kind of auto paint your figure and look pretty decent. I don't know. Guess it depends on what you want. Alright, there we go. So we've got hands set up. Now, I probably am going to use the same shield brown to fill in her eyes, since that's in middle of a very pale skin. So let's see here. Bobby, how'd you do these eyes? Remember, I usually fill in the eyes with a dark brown, but with this light of a skin tone, medium brown might be where it's at. I'm going to see. So you notice I'm moving the figure around instead of like distorting my brush position, and that's key also for developing brush control. You always want to move the figure around until you can paint something comfortably. And we've got that little, now the lips might be an area I will actually use the brown liner, or mix in a bit of brown liner, because that mouth is really in shadow. It's going to be very hard to hit as it is. So you just want to line the mouth to get it there. There we go. She's looking kind of goth now. If I would have done her eyes even darker, because her lips are really dark. Note to self, if you want the goth look, definitely give dark lipstick. it accidentally ended up that way. So I'm actually going to try to get the upper part of this eye dark. All right, that's okay. So now we can shade a little bit more. I got off on a lining kick. It's addictive, so I had to do it. It had to be done. I'm not done yet. I thought I was done, but I'm not. This is bothering me. I want that shadow there. You can also block in more shadows if you want. Like I said, it can get addictive. It's kind of like Zenith. It's like reblocking in your highlights can get kind of addictive on Zenith too. There. Shading. All right, now we will use our shadow. Come here, pink color. It's gotten a little bit glooby, so I'm going to drop a drop or two of water into it. Again, when you go back to a color you haven't used for a while in these well palettes, you usually can tell if it feels kind of plasticky or thick when you dip your brush in. That's the time to add a drop or two of water. Make sure that your color stays good. I can see this one also needs a little bit. Then you mix it up and it's going to be fine for another 45 minutes, an hour. Well, we've managed to get Kiri to sleep all the way to the end of the stream pretty much. We use some pink. Pink coming in on the side of the face here. I'm going to actually hit the area below the brow with the pink. I'm going to use this pink just like a shader, even though it's a really pink color. But on a skin this fair, it can work. Gonna hit her nose, especially because the tip of the nose would be somewhat pink anyway. A little bit of shadow at the edge here usually of the face. A little bit more on the end over here. Got the underside, getting the neck down in there. Give it a nice dark rosy shadow. Use the pink just like you would use any shading color. Because the skin is so rosy, the pink is going to work effectively. Going to put a shadow on the underside of the arm with the pink. Like, it may feel weird and counterintuitive, and that's probably why Bright Skin Shadow didn't sell like it needed to, which is a shame because, like I said, such a good skin shader for fair skin. But you can mix it, as we did, by taking your rosy skin, 4 drops of it, and adding 1 drop of Heraldic Red and 2 drops of Lemon Yellow. And then you will get something sufficiently close to work with. And this is the color that I like for really bright, kind of cartoony almost, young, fresh-faced, fair-skinned people. It also works great for pink-cheeked old ladies, where you want a really pale skin, but you also want those pink cheeks. Can work really well. All right, so now we've got some pink tones that I put in. Now see how all those pink tones are coming in on the skin? Makes it really fresh looking. You predicted she would make it. You get my adoration, Pendrake, because, I'm glad you had faith in Kiri and that she did not actually have a blow up. She says, I'm a good girl. I'm a good girl for Mama today. These are... I don't actually wear glasses, Dragon Pink. I have better than 20/20 vision normally. But my close-in vision started to, go the way of the dodo when I turned 40. So I started using reading glasses, which is what my friend Marika Reimer, also a fabulous painter, uses. She's used them since she was in her, 20s, early 20s. I used to make fun of her. Now here I am. But yeah, so these are just normal wire rim reading glasses. You can get them off of Amazon. They're really cheap. Mine are a 3 times magnification. And usually that's what I find I need. That gets me close enough to compensate for the close-in vision I've lost. Yeah, Mighty Jabberwock. Hold on to that sucker, because when you're doing fair skin tones, this is such a good shader. Like I said, look at that here. Let me get close. Close. I mean, you can see the fair pinkiness of it. There we go. So the rosiness really does work really well as a shadow. Can see it all in there. I can see it there. I've made her nose very pink. She looks kind of drunk at the moment. Yeah, I didn't decide I didn't want to do LASIK or anything because my regular vision is so good. Like when I talk to the doctors about it, they're like, it's not worth it because you have fantastic normal vision. You just lost your close-up vision, so you can correct your close-up vision really easily with cheap glasses. So there's no point in fixing anything. You might mess up something else. So I took that to heart. Good for you though, Nomad Zeke, if it helps you, because some people do. Yeah, Jabberwock. It's good. Yeah, reading glasses. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the difference then. Totally worth it. Totally worth it if you had to use contacts because you were really blind. Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you got your vision back. That's the awesome part of that sort of thing, right? Not worth it for me, but doesn't mean it's not worth it for a lot of other people. Gonna touch up this lower leg here. I didn't quite get my base coat down on there. But yeah, so you can see the rosiness, how I brought in the rosiness for the shadow in these various areas. And it's nice because it gives us a shadow that's that kind of enhances the skin tone without going brown, right? And that's why it tends to make for a very youthful skin tone, because most skin tone shadows are going to introduce a little bit of brown in there to darken it. But with a very young person or very very fresh, out in the outdoors, healthy look, you want to go a bit pinkish. So there we go, a little bit better sometimes with the white there. But yeah, so yeah, David is nearsighted. He gets to cheat. Like my boyfriend, he totally gets to cheat because he takes his glasses off to paint, guys. It's no fair. Yeah, that can work. Getting prescription reading glasses for working on minis. I actually also did that. But most of the time I find, because those are bifocals, I find that that these are just a tad better, and my eyes are pretty even, so I can get away with it. I'm really hard on stuff. I tend to drop everything, so using my expensive glasses daily is annoying. What? Fair Shadow? No, not Fair Shadow. Bright Skin Shadow is discontinued, Tashi. This one. The one that I've been copying. 9232. Which I think is what somebody said. They just got a bottle and weren't sure what to do with it because Bright Skin was taken out. But this is, yeah, nothing in the first 54 got canceled. The first 54 MSP core sell like crazy. Right, Estro? Right, exactly, Dragon Pink, because bifocals are only strong at the bottom of the frame, right? So you have to kind of be painting like that, and yeah, it didn't work. So in a pinch, if that's all I've got, I'll use them, but I have several pairs of the Spring Hinge 3x reading glasses now, and keep them various places. Oh, I think the doglet's getting uppity. So, do we have a raid, Justin, or John, or whoever is currently being our handler?
Yes, we do. Hold on a second.
Good. Yeah, because Kiri's getting restless. I'm going to have to rush her out. So thanks, guys. I hope this was interesting to everybody. We talked an awful lot about white primer and primer in general. We recapped. We talked about like pre-lining areas when you're working with white primer to get everything to stand out and to kind of block in where your shadows are going to be for a more effective paint job down the road. We talked about how to match Bright Skin Shadow, a canceled color, if you really want to create a young and fresh looking rosy fair skin for a miniature that you're working on rather. And yeah, so we're going to Zambies, everybody. Tomorrow, again, we're switching minis. Tomorrow's Sphinx Day. Friday is Sphinx Day. So I hope you all come and tune in and have a great time with us, okay? And I hope you have a fantastic Thursday. It's almost weekend, guys. All we have to do is hang on. Have a good one.